This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 680 of the Dressage Radio Show, official podcast of the United States Dressage Federation on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. On today's episode, we will continue our discussion with Felicitas von Neumann-Cosel on contact. And then we will have a great interview with author Daniel Stewart, who provides his own trainer tip this week.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Hi, Phil. How are you today?
Hey, Reese. I had a bit of a well-duh moment earlier today. I had we already talked about this, but I had a dentist appointment booked for earlier today. I needed a filling done, so...
Oh.
Yeah. But I didn't really think about it. I'm like, then I've got to record a podcast after getting a filling, and
that we've done for 10 years. It's funny. So every time Phil makes a funny noise, it's really hard for me not to snicker. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
This is real life here at the Dressage Radio Show.
So yeah, my tongue ended up being a little bit thick and kind of numb. You know what that feels like. So, if I'm talking with a little bit of a lisp, or
everybody can laugh with me.
That's right.
You'll probably hear me snicker a little bit because it's really been hard all night to not snicker because it's funny.
There you go.
But we've had a great night of recording. So we've actually been really busy, even with Phil's tongue, which of course I've had to mute myself several times. But how, besides your unfortunate timing on the dentist appointment, how's your week been?
Yeah, really, really, really good. We're in dog days of summer, I think, as they call it, and horse is going good. We're gearing up for another competition, so hopefully I won't get COVID again, and we can show the horses, and we're gonna have success and all that great stuff. Great. So you can check out my Facebook, see if I can grab some shots and stuff about the goings on and what's going on with you.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I finally got you to get professional photos at every show. I'm very proud of this moment. I feel like I've achieved something. I kept saying everybody, like, Phil, you need extra, you have such great horses. They're beautifully trained. They're beautifully turned out. Please get some professional pictures. So it's been, I've been on.
Yeah,
and you have been.
Earlier this year, like the June show, there wasn't a photographer at them or, whatever. So I couldn't. Yeah,
you couldn't. Well, and I'm, hot take, because my best friend actually, I don't know if I've ever said this on that podcast, but is a photographer for saddlebreds. So, I know, you don't think about how actually everybody that comes to the shows, like that's her living, that's what she does. So I have a soft spot in my heart for photographers because I know what a lifestyle it is, and it's really difficult. But there's nothing like getting some pictures because, we always need them. We use them on the podcast. We use them on our social media, all that stuff. But, it's really fun to get photos of horses throughout their career. And so I do try to get one every horse show. I can't always buy a lot, but I try to buy a little bit. And we have a wonderful photographer here, and she always gets great candids, and it's really fun. So I do think it's really important. So I love it. Yeah, you have a horse show. We took little baby Neo. Jet did an amazing job with little baby Neo. We went to, and this is really cool to see, again, living in Lexington, we have such a great schooling show program. And I mean, this schooling show had 240 entries. You know what I mean? No, it was a dressage show in a combined test, because we have a great little park here. Actually, it's a pretty big park. It's owned by the city, but it's called Masterson Station Park, and you can go ride there. And they have good footing and good rings and safe jumping. There's always a jump course set up out there. So it's really cool. So we took little baby Neo, and it was like a real show. And I mean, he was great. There was some Western dressage going on. There was some jumping, there was a lot going on, and he was really good. And I'm really glad we went and to support it, number one, but it was cool to see what we would consider kind of a little show. I would consider that much more like how Europe is, where you show, how you haul in, you show out of your trailer. So it was cool. It was really fun. I was really proud. She got a 76. I was pretty proud from a recognized, like a real judge. So I was really happy and really pleased with her. So it was a fun day. But again, just great to kind of support the local scene. But like I said, it was bigger than some recognized shows. And I think that's going to happen a little bit more this fall with the economy and that kind of stuff and people getting youngsters out. So it was a fun weekend of training, and my other horses have been training well. It's just, again, same thing. It's been really busy. And I really do feel like I need to mention Eastern Kentucky had some very bad floods this week. It's far, actually, it's about 2 hours from my house. But if anybody's interested, the Kentucky Horse Council is taking donations, financial. Also, they're taking some equipment. It depends on what you have and where you're located. But if anybody's interested, I had some people reach out. That's a great resource, and that's the KentuckyHorseCouncil.org. If you're interested in helping that area, it's really sad. And we're recording on a Thursday evening. It's raining again, so we're getting a lot of rain right now. So it's not letting up for that area. So if you're interested, please reach out and help, or you're welcome to reach out to me, Reese at horseradionetwork.com, and I'll help in any way that I can facilitate that. But we do have, on another note, a great show for you guys. We're going to get started right after this commercial break from Kentucky Performance Products.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Electrolytes. Who needs them? Your horse, that's who. Electrolytes perform critical functions within your horse's body. They help regulate nerve and muscle functions by carrying electrical impulses between cells. In addition, electrolytes assist the body in maintaining a healthy fluid balance by controlling your horse's desire to drink. When your horse loses significant amounts of electrolytes and fluids, problems such as dehydration, muscle cramping, fatigue, tying up, and colic may occur. Even in mild forms, these conditions can have a negative impact on your horse's ability to perform and recover after exercise. Top riders and veterinarians turn to Summer Games Electrolyte to keep their horse healthy in hot weather, and you can too. Summer Games replenishes the electrolytes and trace minerals lost when your horse sweats, and it stimulates the thirst response so your horse continues to drink and stay properly hydrated. So when the going gets hot, trust Summer Games Electrolyte from Kentucky Performance Products to protect your horse.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com.
Well, for tonight's show, we are so excited to have back for round 2, Felicitas von Neumann-Cosel. We're going to talk tonight about connection. We talked about the horse. This week, we're talking about the rider. So Felicitas, welcome back. Thanks for coming back on.
My pleasure. Okay, so today we want to tackle what the rider should feel, and that's what everybody really wanted to hear. And that's obviously one of the hardest answers that we can have. And if you listened to what we talked about last time, I think one of the things is clear is that your hands are really more there to support the bit in the sense of that it can be stable and in the right place in the horse's mouth, and that the movement can go from back to front through that connection. But now, of course, here it comes, how do we do this? And I think what people most of all want to know, how much do I feel in my hands, or how much pressure or not how much pressure.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a common question for anyone who's taught dressage at all, yeah. So give us your take on it, Felicitas, because I know what I say all the time.
So this is my take, and I have to say, every horse is a little different in the contact. So there already are too many variables that we could make it something that scientifically we can say that much pressure or this much pressure is the right amount of pressure. But what I would invite our listeners to do is take a bit and like a snaffle bit, lay it on the table, and then take your ring fingers and just pick up the bit ring itself. Because imagine the bit lays in the horse's mouth. So the horse really carries the bit. It's not spitting it out, can't, because it's obviously connected to the headstall. So really, what I would love to feel on every horse is that I feel the weight of the bit ring on both sides. And what I want to feel is that I can have a tiny little adjustment. If I close that ring finger a little, I could, and you can play with that when you put that bit on the table. You can just pick one side of the bit up a little and then let it very gently come back down. And you start to realize with how little bit of movement of your ring finger, you can move that bit, and how little weight there actually has to be in there. And so in your hand, like there's not that much pressure, but there has to be that stability, because you can also open your fingers. Like a lot of people have trouble that their hands open up too quickly or too much. And then you can feel how the bit kind of falls back onto the table, kind of crashing down. So it's that idea, a little bit of a floating kind of feeling that for me is the ideal. And I would really like this type of contact at most times. And of course, in retraining projects, that's not always possible. But so now for our listener, getting a little that idea, now you imagine when you have the bit rings in your ring fingers now, if you now would have the rein attached, and then you're on the end of the rein, that's basically you are connected to each bit ring on each side. And it matters what your hands are doing and what they're doing in conjunction with each other, so that you really have that feeling that you're aware of both sides. So that's kind of the beginning of the awareness. And then I think we have to a little bit talk about technically the hand. We have two variables. I mean, if I want to be, thinking about it, is one is a person who makes the hands so tight that the wrist gets tight and the whole arm gets rigid. And then you have the people that open their fingers constantly and the reins slide out and the horse cannot connect because there's no stability on that side. And so I feel like is this something I learned a lot of these little things from my cousin Susanna von Dietz, who's really fantastic about rider's position and mechanics of the rider. And what she described is if you make a fist, you kind of start with if you're right now listening, make a fist, and you feel like your little finger closes down first and everything gets tight. And so what she recommended, if you're that tight, feel the rein just between your thumb and your index finger. And if you take your thumb and you kink it a little, like a little rooftop, then the pressure of the thumb on top of that index finger can literally keep the rein from slipping. Right there is where I keep the length of rein. I do not let it slip through the top part of my hand. And now, when you have those two fingers stable, you can close the middle finger, then the little ring finger, and then the little finger. So you can close your hand one finger at a time. And now the hand is closed, but it's not that tight fist that people make. And I mean, we all know, here's Sally Swift, Cradle the Bird. I guess Milo Rivera said the wrist has to be as soft as you're going to eat your cereal or your soup. I mean, we're all trying to come up with ways of explaining that. But I felt like the idea of, closing your fist one finger at a time is really helpful. And on the other hand, when your hands open all the time, this is something my sister told me, which I really appreciated, is that when your fingers are open, you don't have the same flexibility in your elbow. So when your hand is gently closed, you have much more movement in your elbow. I found that super interesting for myself because my left hand wants to open up and I played with it. And so then when I focused actually in opposite a little bit on my little finger on that fist that wanted to open up all the time, I was able to keep it closed without too much tension. But I think that is important. And I try to be as ambidextrous as I can be, but we all, struggle that both of our sides are not even. But I get that even feeling in both hands, I think, is really important before you can give that horse a steady and soft connection. And again, that is also something that my cousin said, really like that. It's not you are taking a connection, you're giving a connection. So that means your hands have that forward tendency. And I know people talk about pushing the shopping cart or, whatever, other images we have that kind of show you that there has to be that forward tendency in your hand. What I like to ask people when they train with me or ride with me for the first time, I ask them, for example, what other sports they do. And I found that people who ski, they're really, aware of their lower body and they can absorb the shock in their legs, which is super helpful for riding. They steer from their core, super helpful for riding. So good skiers, if they can take that image, it can help them for riding greatly. But the ski poles is kind of the same thing. The ski pole floats kind of in your hand. You don't hold it tight, but you have to carry it and support it. And it's that idea that we have to more think of our arms framing us, and we're carrying our hands and a little bit like, pushing our hands forward to give the horse the contact, rather than the hands. They are not independent from our body. They're independent that they can feel, but our arms are actually framing our core, and that helps us to keep our core forward and balanced, and that helps to keep the hand quiet without getting rigid. And so I think that I really try to show my students that they can, feel like if they have, for example, done ballroom dancing, can be super helpful, that they have that feeling that they're framing themselves with their arms. The upper arms are gently turned outward and their shoulder blades are down. Then the upper arms are kind of supporting on the rib cage, and they can make sure that their rib cage goes forward as the horse goes forward, so their upper body stays over the pelvis, so the alignment stays, and then the hand can stay stable.
I really like that point about ballroom dancing, because it's the same thing. You've got a partner, So I've done a little bit just as a preparation for our wedding, and then we did a dance at the wedding. But me being the guy, I have to lead my partner, so it's very subtle. But you like when you want your partner to go back, you have to very slightly with your whole body, but also with your hands and your arms, is send them back or take them with you forward. And it's not that you're pulling and pushing. You're responsible for your own balance, but you're also trying to send signals to the horse. And in this way, the rein is your hands connected to the horse, but when you want to go forward, you got to, not drop them, but like
go forward. Exactly.
Let them go forward. And when you want to come back, again, you're not, yanking and pulling, but you're, like you use this subtle thing that everything from rider body is connected softly so that, everything is saying the same thing. Like you cannot, pull your partner into you, but not move, from your core.
Exactly.
Because you're just going to bang together, and if I just drop the connection to my dance partner, throw them away, and then now all of a sudden there's a huge gap between the partners, and then they're both going to kind of fall and stumble and whatever. So I was just gonna...
No, I think it's really, and you find when you get people that are body aware and they have done anything like that, and you can link that feeling to it, it can make a huge difference just within, a very short period of time, because they can think about it differently, So I think that that's one of the things, that learning how to keep your frame and realizing how much movement there is, and you have to go with the movement, and you have to create movement, and you have to then redirect movement, but that's all related to the core, and the arms are part of that. And then, little directional aids of the hand, which can get a lot more sophisticated, of trying to figure out lateral flexion and this kind of thing. But then we already know contact when we talk about that. When we get to those details, it's like finding the first feeling of how do I carry my arms. I think another thing that I wanted to describe is that people have a hard time figuring out how much they have to give in the elbow or not, particularly in the rising trot. So, that going up and down, how do we go up and down, but the hand doesn't go up and down. So sometimes what I like to do is I take people and I take them off the horse and I make them stand at a wall, and I kind of have them hold their hands like they would ride, and then have them gently push into the wall. And then I make them just a little bit jump up and down like they're on a trampoline. And then they start to get that sense of when they push against the wall, they can stabilize their hands, and the hands are in the same place, but they can go up and down, so that they start to feel that opening and closing of the elbow it has to be natural. You can't think about it, because then you would have to try to figure out how much do I open and close it. It just has to, kind of happen to absorb the movement and to be able to stay stable. So I think that has been a helpful tool that I showed, my students.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because obviously, rising trot is just going to throw everything out of whack, and people are focusing on keeping their hands still and all those things, and kind of can sometimes go a little bit wrong. So
another nice little tool, again, my cousin played with that, and I like that. That goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning, thinking about the bit being connected to the reins. She actually just took a bit connected to the reins and made people kind of hold it again on the ground, and then start trotting and cantering, and particularly in the canter, don't have it go flopping up and down, because when you make people canter on the ground and you make them try to stabilize their hands, it's amazing where the hands all go. Just because the lower body is cantering, their arms go all over the place. So cantering and kind of basically carrying a tray or holding those reins and not letting the bit bounce up and down gives you a good appreciation for how much your elbows have to be able to give.
Yes.
Those are great tips, great tools. And I wanted to thank you so much for coming on to our show and, giving us lots to think about and lots to strive for as we go and go out and try and perfect this sport and this, horse dancing, having such a big partner to try to balance rider and horse.
Yeah. Well, and when it's right, it gets so beautiful and it's so much fun, and the horses are so appreciative. It's just a real thrill. So if any of this was helpful for someone, that's wonderful.
Absolutely. Felicitas, thank you so much for coming back on the show. How can our listeners find you online?
So find me on Facebook. I have a professional page on Facebook, and all of my clinics and symposiums are posted on there. And otherwise, you can find me at First Choice Farm, 301-854-6541. We also have a website, so you can reach me if you want me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
The Plaidcast is North America's most listened to horse show inspired podcast with over 200 episodes. Hosted by me, Piper Clem, publisher of the Plaid Horse magazine. Listen in to hear guests, which include Olympic equestrians, top hunter jumper and equitation riders, trainers, vets, farriers, horse show managers, and industry insiders discussing topics that matter: horsemanship, collegiate riding, the state of our sport, and horse show how-tos for riders at every level. One episode each month is devoted to the mental side of your ride with nationally recognized mental skills coach and author Tanya Johnston. You will also hear insider stories about how the Plaid Horse magazine comes together every month.
Well, tonight, it's really an honor because we've already had a blast talking with our author of our book club, Bolder, Braver, Brighter, Daniel Stewart. He's an international coach, sports psychologist. He's amazing. I've seen him in person a few times. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we really were chatting so much. We're like, we got to stop and actually record something. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started with horses and created such an amazing career.
Oh, so that's brilliant. Let me set the bar really low. So many people start because mom was a rider or dad was a rider. They grew up in a family that was made up of riders. But actually, I when I was 13, I had a girlfriend, and I figured out really quickly if I wanted to hang out with her, I needed to I needed to spend time at the barn because her parents own a hunter jumper barn. And it was interesting. The more I hung out at the barn, the more girls I found, and I figured I found my place in life. This is where I'm going.
We told my brother the same thing, by the way. He did all right. He married a horse girl too. He was smart like you.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if that's underwhelming or just completely irresponsible and uncomfortable, but I sort of stumbled into the equestrian world by mistake. But it didn't take me long before I discovered my love and passion of both the horse and the sport. And as a young trainer, I grew up, teaching in pony club camps and summer camps and that sort of thing. I've always been a coach. And I found my passion pretty early on, but what I didn't find was the key to helping all of my students. So I actually went to university and got a degree in sports science, which is a little bit of physical education with a lot of knowledge added to it. So the foundation of that degree is sports psychology and kinesiology and a bunch of things that can help me to help athletes, sort of unlock their potential. And so what I did is I married together my love of the horse and the sport with my education in sports psychology, and booyah crackalack, 4 books come out of me, and here I am with you. And anyways, underwhelming, but pretty powerful at the same time.
So what we were going to ask you is your latest book here, Bolder, Braver, Brighter. You said you have a little story about it. So tell us about that.
So as sort of a prequel to this story, I can't thank my publishers enough for 2 or 3 people to believe in somebody like me early on. They published my first book in 2000. It's an honor and a privilege, but Trafalgar, they're just a phenomenal group of people. And what they do is they help me to behave and not color outside the lines. And I color outside the lines a lot. I don't think I'm a really good rider, but I don't think I'm a very good writer. And I remember with my first book, I sent them the manuscript, and then the manuscript came back, but it was all red.
Yeah.
But I sent it black, and it came back red, and they're like, "Those are your spelling mistakes and your grammatical errors." And in the beginning, they put it on my lap, and they said, "Coach, if you want to publish something, if you want to share your message, you need to make a bigger effort." So I sat through there, and I learned how to write, but what they've done over the last couple of books, I've published 4, is that they've kind of scaffolded. They've helped me along, and they haven't just taught me how to be a better rider, but a better writer as well. And then it came to this 4th book, and I wrote this, what I thought was a brilliant book for them, and the book was called Braver, Brighter, Bolder. And then what I did is I wrote an entire book in that order. I'm gonna have one section on the book about being brave and one section on the book about being bright, and then when all that comes together, you have a bold life. And they said, "I think you've got it wrong. Don't you mean to have brighter at the end? Shouldn't it be bolder, braver, brighter?" And they had misunderstood the title. They understood brighter to be your life will be brighter if you are bold and brave. And I had intended brighter as being smarter. So when you were smart and bold, you become brave. And they said, "I think you've got it wrong. I think you need to just change the 3 words in your title around." Well, of course, that made me rewrite the entire book, because you can't write part 1 referring to part. Yeah, you can't have part 3 referring to part 1 when part 3 is now part 1. And I sat with their comment for a few days, and I said, "Snap! They want me to rewrite the whole book so that we can put words in a different order on the cover." And it was really clear they were right. They were correct. I had it wrong. I wrote the book in the wrong order, and I rewrote the book because once again, they helped me to color inside the lines. They are better. They understand, and I do believe I have a lot of smart things to say, but they really did rein me in and help me to see that that their expertise will make me better. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate the mentorship, and the guidance and the education that Trafalgar has bestowed on me.
So tell us, I mean, you do so much work in so many clinics around the country. It's amazing how many you do. And tell us, what was the inspiration for this book? Why Bolder, Braver, Brighter?
No. Oh, here comes another completely underwhelming story. Oh, the cheapest.
I love it.
So interesting too. So two stories. I was teaching clinics in Alaska, and I was very excited about it because I was going to go to Alaska, and for the first time, I was taking my brand new book, Ride Right, and again, Trafalgar published this a brilliant book, and I'm teaching in Alaska. But if I'm going to Alaska, I'm going to take my dad with me. So Dad comes with me, and I teach for 6 days, and we stay for 12 and enjoy each other. And while we were there, Dad he read my book. He read Ride Right. And as we were driving back to the airport at the end of 12 days, he looks at me and he goes, so what's in your next book? And I said, no, this is it, Dad. It was really hard to write. It was a lot of time. And he said, you mean this is it? Like, that's all you've got to say? Like, and I was slightly insulted. Like, I remember driving, through Alaska to the airport. And I wanted to be insulted, but I wasn't, because I think there was a message there. And he's like, I don't think your story's told yet. It just feels like it's not finished. And it took me a little while to digest that. And then I called, Martha and Caroline at Trafalgar, and I said, do you think you might be willing to publish another book? And then they said, man, we were thinking the same thing. We love this message of empowerment. We have a lot of books about how to develop a strong hip, heel, and hand, but we need a few more books on developing a strong head and heart. And it was interesting. My second book came about because my father wasn't completely happy with the first book. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Dad. And then for each of my other books, Trafalgar, they'll email me once in a while. And they go, Coach, we love what you're doing, but we've reprinted this book 3 times. It's time for a new one. It's time for a new book. We can keep reprinting this one. We can keep, we can sort of keep putting the same print in front of the same people, or you can just write another book, because I'm pretty sure that they believe that the field of positive thinking and mental coaching and believing in yourself and never comparing yourself to others and overcoming fears and failures, I think that they understand that subject is, it's bottomless, man. Like, there are so many skills, there are so many things that we can do to overcome what we believe overcomes us. Yet we don't often see that. For example, this year I'm teaching 41 clinics in 55 days, yet weird enough, I never bump into anybody doing the same kind of clinics as me. I bump into people teaching, flying change and jump position and release and equitation and collection, extension, flexion. But I never really bump into other clinicians teaching psychology, the mental part of writing, the part that can take our tears and fears away. So anyways, I believe Trafalgar understands that there's an endless, limitless, bottomless number of techniques that can help us to become more courageous and confident. And every now and then they send me that email that says, hey, Coach, we've printed this book 3 times. Ready for a new one? And I'm like, crap.
Well, I'm just sure that throughout, teaching all summer and just being out there, you kind of figure out new ways to deliver maybe the same old message, or, not that it's a boring message, but you have to, from myself and teaching and coaching, it's always great to come up with a new way to deliver to someone new, an inspiration. At the end of the day, maybe you feel like this, but I do all the time. It's like, it's not about producing the perfect half pass or, getting a 10 in the ring. So much about riding and that's why I think it's so great for kids is just overcoming fears and striving towards goals and getting knocked down and getting back up. These are life lessons. These are not dressage specific lessons. And so we can never read enough about it, or, have enough information, or, just something maybe a little bit different said in a different way that's going to help us, throughout life, and not just, horse specific things. That's why I think it's so great.
Yeah. Well said. And I have to believe that that's somewhat of the power behind all of my books, especially Bolder, Braver, Brighter. And I appreciate your comments, because every time I teach a clinic, and this isn't cliche, but every time I teach a clinic, I learn something from them, and at some point I'm going to have to start to pay my, clinic participants rather than the other way around, having them pay me. But they're, I drive away every single day saying, snap, I have to remember to tell this to the next group, meaning I learned something today that can help the next group, and going back to my, story about my father, maybe it's a book on sports psychology. Maybe it's a book on mental coaching. Maybe it's a book on becoming more confident or courageous. But every single day, it's like I learn a new way to deliver that message. And there should never, ever be an end to that message. I have to admit that when you think about the majority of challenges that equestrians face, very little of them have to do with how open they can make their shoulders, or how deep they can put weight into their heels, or how great their half pass is. The majority of struggles that we as equestrians face aren't below the ears; they're between the ears, aren't they? They're the fears and the failures and the upsets and the disappointments and the defeats and the dejection. And if we can accept those, and if we can identify those, then we can move beyond them. But if we continue to focus on the hips and the heels and the hands, and we ignore the head and the heart, then I've always said that we put a ceiling on how high we can go in our sport. And I suppose my goal is to remove that ceiling, to allow the leg in the seat to allow you to achieve your true success, simply because mistakes and failures or fears haven't interfered with that or placed a roof on your ability. So, and you also mentioned something about the young rider, and a large focus of mine is to the young rider. I do believe that if we can teach the young rider the message of empowerment and believing in yourself, never comparing yourselves to others, always believing that you're capable of always overcoming mistakes or missed opportunities, fears or failures. If we can do that to the young rider, then that becomes their muscle memory, doesn't it? That becomes who they are. That becomes the fabric of what they build, and that becomes their story. But oftentimes with the adult rider, it's more like corrective medicine. And oftentimes with the adult rider, it's a little bit more complex, isn't it? To break our inappropriate behaviors of overthinking, feeling fear before joy and that sort of thing. So with young riders, it's like corrective medicine, whereas with adult riders sometimes, or I apologize, for young riders, it's like preventative medicine, whereas with adult riders, it's like corrective medicine. So both populations, the young and old, we can both learn to excel in our sport by becoming more confident and courageous, overcoming fears and failures. But to each population, there's a different message or importance there. So So well said. Well, I appreciate that.
And Daniel, it's so true. I mean, I think Phil and I, myself, I've had to do a lot of work with sports psychologists, and I mean, it's a struggle for me. It has been since I was 16. It's not. Mm-hmm. And I've been open about it on the show. This is a real part of riding. And as it doesn't matter if you're competing at a local level or you're competing, at the international level, it is a struggle for everybody. And so that's why, it's so important for us that we chose your book, because both Phil and I feel very, very strongly that it's something you have to work on. Mental fitness is just like working on your half passes, like you said, and your challenges do change as you grow older. I mean, our challenges even 10 years ago when we started the show are very different than they are now. So I love it. So you have a tip for us. So we're going to throw you right into our trainer tip of the week, and we're going to let you take it over.
All right. So I think I've got a really cool tip. I think this is going to help. As a matter of fact, this can help everybody, young, old, a beginner, advanced, dressage, or the eventer. So in order for any of us to achieve our potential, all of us must be in that individual zone of optimal functioning called the zone. The idea of being in the zone is important because in the zone, pressure does not exist. Failure or fears do not exist. So in order for any of us to achieve our true potential, we must find ourselves the ability to enter into the zone. Now, it's important for us to understand in order for us to achieve the zone, we must all create in our minds what is called a flow state. So the flow state, for those of you who don't know what it is, that is the absence of analysis paralysis. That is the absence of worrying and overthinking. The flow state is when your mind just works automatically and naturally, unforced. Let's connect the dots. In order to get into the zone, you need a flow state. But in order to get a flow state, your brain needs to latch onto a rhythm because the flow is a rhythm, is a harmony, is a beat. If you think about what a flow is, the ebb and flow, the waves, that requires rhythm and rhyme. So here's my tip to get into the zone where fears and failures no longer derail your train of thought. To get into the zone, we need the flow state. But to get the flow state, we need a rhythm. And one of the best ways to create the rhythm is by coming up with what I like to call a mojo mantra. Because when we get out of the zone, we lose our mojo, and all of a sudden our confidence and our courage goes away because we're starting to wonder and wish and why, wonder why we're letting things slip away. So what's a mojo mantra? A mojo mantra is a series of words that is delivered in a rhythmical way. And it's important for us to understand that rhythm and rhyme actually fire the calmness center in our brains and help us to enter the flow state, which puts us into the zone. So there are kind of two rules when it comes to creating the mojo mantra. First is it has to have rhythm and rhyme. And second, it should deliver a message based on how we should behave. You know, I even lose myself when I say that. It's so confusing. So let me give you a couple examples of mojo mantras. Here we go. Push on, finish strong. Push on, finish strong. Push on, finish strong. I can do it, nothing to it. I can do it, nothing to it. I can do it, nothing to it. Rest of the ride, best of the ride. Rest of the ride, best of the ride. Keep calm, ride on. Keep calm, ride on. So can you hear those four statements? They're delivered repetitively, but I'm being conscious of delivering them in a rhythmical way. Okay, let's connect the dots. In order to get into the zone, you need a flow state. In order to get the flow state, your brain needs to latch onto rhythm and rhyme. We can create that flow state by delivering self-directed messages with rhythm and rhyme. But these are called behavior-directed mojo mantras because they actually deliver the message based on how you should behave at that particular moment. So let's say, for example, and I'm an eventer. Let's say that and one thing that used to really derail my train of thought is when I would jump a fence, I'd hear the hard rub, and then I'd hear the fence hit the ground behind me. You know, as a young rider, I would focus on the problem in the past, even though I knew I should stay locked on the positive in the present. But I would get upset. I'd be disappointed. I'd be frustrated. But what I do now is this. When I jump, I hear the hard rub, and I hear the rail hit the ground behind me. I immediately say, rest of the ride, best of the ride. Rest of the ride, best of the ride. Rest of the ride, best of the ride. So understand what's happening here. I've become mindful that my brain typically goes dark at that moment. I focus on the problem in the past, but I know to be my best, I need to stay focused on the positive in the present. I need to be in the zone. But that rail in the ground is going to try and suck me out of that zone. So I'm going to fight to get back in there. And I do that by creating the flow state, by creating a rhythmical mojo mantra. See, rest of the ride, best of the ride. That tells me how to act, doesn't it? That tells me what to do. The words literally tell me what to do, but it's delivered with rhythm and rhyme that stimulates the calmness center in our brain, but also creates the flow state that puts me into the zone where pressure, anxiety, frustration, and disappointment no longer exist. I know when that rail hits the ground that it has the ability to pull me out of the zone, pull me out of being my best, or put a roof on my perfection or my potential. But I'm mindful of it. I no longer let that happen. I've now created a a predefined mojo mantra. When I encounter a challenge, a disappointment, a defeat, a fear, a frustration, I automatically repeat the mojo mantra with rhythm and rhyme because it tells me what I can do right now and how to get into the zone. So my tip would be for everybody, identify who you are. Identify which challenge seems to derail your focus, seems to throw you under the bus the quickest. Identify what that is. Own it, accept it. It's part of you. We participate in a sport that doesn't permit perfection. It's going to happen. But when it does, arm yourself with a mojo mantra, something, some behavior, some advice, piece of advice from you to yourself, yet is delivered in a rhythmical way. Because the advice tells you what to do, and the rhythmical way puts you into the zone where fears and frustration and disappointments no longer interfere with you. So it could be
Daniel,
wreck of the ride, best of the ride. It could be, it could push on, finish strong. But it's so helpful. It's so silly. It should be more complex. I should give you more complex. Maybe a tip with more syllables or bigger words, but no. Rhythm and rhyme, mantra, it'll save you. It'll save you from yourself.
This has been great. That's a wonderful, great tip. I think people will get a lot out of that, and they will get a lot out of your book. I'm sure of it. So give us the title again, and let us know where everybody can get the book and how to contact you if they needed to.
Perfect. If I could, I'd like to tell you what's on the front of the book and the back of the book.
Yeah.
The front of the book, the title is Bolder, Braver, Brighter, but the back of the book is this brilliant photo of a rider who's just loving life, and it says, the secret to having it all is knowing you already do. Our talent, our skill, our potential is inside us. We just need to believe it. We need to believe that what's inside us is enough. We just need to bring that greatness out. So the secret to having it all is knowing you already do. It's not like you need to go look for it anywhere else. It's already inside. So the fact that Trafalgar Square put that on the back cover, and that's it, isn't it? That's the drop the mic moment. That's the aha moment. The secret to having it all is knowing you already do. You just need to believe in it. And I hope that the words and the photos and the cartoons and the fill in the blanks and the pages in my book, Bolder, Braver, and Brighter, will help you to truly believe that and understand that what's inside you deserves to be brought out. My only goal is to bring your greatness out. And Trafalgar's got a beautiful website. It's Horse and Rider Books. Y'all can hit up their website and order that book. They ship books all over the world. You can also order it as a direct download right onto your device. Nothing prettier than a book full of pictures coming across on your tablet with that shiny screen, I swear.
It's so true.
And my website is Pressure Proof Academy. My second book published by Trafalgar Square was called Pressure Proof, another equestrian sports psychology book. So my website is Pressure Proof Academy. Everybody can find out about my clinics and my YouTube program and my instructor certification course and all of that at Pressure Proof Academy. But this book lives at horseandriderbooks.com, and that's the best place to get it for sure.
Fantastic. Well, Daniel, thank you so much, and we look forward to having you back on again. This has been amazing.
Thanks, guys. I love talking to you. Really loved it. Thanks so much.
Well, as always, we love email and Facebook shout outs. Keep them coming. It really brightens our day when we hear from you guys. So keep them coming. The United States Dressage Federation is your connection to dressage education, competition, and achievement. Visit usdf.org for more information. That's www.usdf.org, the online destination for dressage. You can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
I think the best way to find me is probably through Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors for allowing us to put on a good show. That's Kentucky Performance Products. If you'd like to support our show and the Horse Radio Network, you can do that through the Auditor Program, found at www.horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we'll talk to you next week.